Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to really get into something important today.
Always up for a good deep dive.
Right. So today, child marriage in Nepal. It's one of those issues you hear about, but we want to go deeper than the headlines.
Definitely. Get to the heart of it.
Exactly. So we got a couple of really interesting sources to work with.
Oh, lay 'em on me.
First up, a report from 2016. It's by this group called Girls Not Brides. Pretty powerful name, huh?
Yeah, straight to the point.
And then a more recent study just came out in 2023 from the Journal of Global Health Reports. So we're looking at it from different angles.
Nice. A good mix of perspective.
Our mission today is not just to tell you what child marriage is. I mean, we're assuming you're somewhat familiar.
Yeah, our listeners are pretty sharp.
Right. But the why. Why does it still happen? What are the consequences? Maybe some that we don't even think about. And what are some of the solutions being proposed?
Love that approach. Solutions focused.
Got to be, right. So first things first, some stats to set the scene.
Hit me.
The Girls Not Brides report, it says that 37%, that's over a 30 girls in Nepal, are married before they turn 18.
Wow.
And get this, 8%, so almost 1 in 10, are married before they even hit 15.
That's disturbing, man. Especially when you consider...
Go on, you're going to say?
Well, Nepal's got this surprisingly high legal marriage age, 20, for both men and women. You'd think that would have a bigger impact.
You would, right? Makes me wonder what's really going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, the law is there, but clearly it's not enough. There's got to be more to it.
Definitely. And both sources we've got pointed the usual suspects, poverty, lack of education, those deeply rooted societal norms, the kind of stuff that's hard to change.
It's like a tangled mess. You try to pull one thread and...
10 more get pulled tight.
Exactly. But the 2023 study, it digs a little deeper, reveals some interesting nuances that add to the complexity.
Like what?
So one thing that really stood out was the role of family size. Big families struggling financially, they might see marrying off a daughter as a way to kind of lessen the burden.
Makes sense, in a sad way. One less mouth to feed.
Yeah, or even to free up resources to, say, prioritize a son's education. It's a tough choice, but you can see how, in their situation, it might feel like the only option.
Makes you realize we can't just judge from the outside looking in. There are always layers.
Always. And speaking of layers, let's talk about the impact of child marriage. We know it's bad. Both sources agree on that, but...
But the 2023 study, it doesn't hold back on the health consequences. Paints a pretty vivid picture.
Yeah, and what struck me was how much of it stems from just a lack of awareness. Like, these girls are often pressured to have kids super early, right?
Way too young to be mothers themselves.
And they might not have access to or even knowledge about contraception.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It is. So you've got frequent pregnancies, higher risk of complications, even maternal mortality, miscarriages. It's scary stuff.
And it's not just physical health either. The study talks about mental health too, which is often overlooked.
Right, like the stress from all these responsibilities, the pressure to conform to societal expectations, and often they just don't have a support system in place.
It's like a pressure cooker situation.
Exactly. And the study even mentions postpartum depression, something that's not talked about nearly enough, especially in these contexts.
Makes you realize we often only see the tip of the iceberg with these issues.
Yeah, there's a whole lot going on beneath the surface that we need to bring into the light.
And here's where things get interesting. The 2016 report, the one from Girls Not Brides,
Yeah.
they found that a lot of the girls actually described their marriages as love marriages, even when those marriages was driven by poverty or, trying to avoid an arranged marriage.
That's kind of paradoxical, isn't it? Love and desperation kind of intertwine.
Right. But it made me think maybe for them, love marriage is a way to grab a little control in a situation where they don't have much.
Like choosing the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, maybe. Still a tough situation to be in.
For sure. But even in those love marriages, there's still this huge pressure to go through with it if the girl gets pregnant.
It all comes back to the social stigma and lack of options. It's a vicious cycle.
It is, and it makes finding solutions all the more urgent.
Well, that's a perfect segue because we're not just going to leave it there, right? The 2023 study, it actually asked women who had experienced child marriage what they thought would help. Their solutions go way beyond just laws and policies.
Oh, that's smart. Getting it straight from the source. What did they say? Education was huge. They really see it as the key to breaking that cycle of, poverty, limited choices.
Yeah, give them the tools to create a different future. Totally makes sense.
And it wasn't just about keeping girls in school either. They talked about setting up night schools for girls who are already married.
Wow, so even if they've already gone through that, they still have a chance.
Exactly. And they stress that it's not just about girls' education. They want employment opportunities for all women.
Right, so it's not just about taking the pressure off families financially. It's about empowering women in general.
Exactly. Giving them more autonomy, more security.
Love it. So education, employment, Anything else that stood out?
Big time. They talked about the need for these really targeted awareness campaigns, especially in rural areas.
So, getting the information out there where it's most needed, what kind of information?
Well, like busting myths about contraception, for one, getting real about mental health challenges, stuff that people might not even realize is a problem.
Makes you wonder if sometimes lack of information is the biggest obstacle of all.
Could be. But knowing what we know now, it's kind of inspiring, right? They're not waiting for someone to save them. They're saying, this is what we need.
It's powerful. It reminds me we can get so caught up in the statistics, the big picture, we forget about the individuals.
Right. The human side of it all.
Yeah, and their resilience, their determination to make things better.
Definitely. They're not just victims, they're agents of change, speaking up, pushing for a better future.
And that brings us to, well, what can we do? We've learned a lot, seen how complex this is, but what's our role in all this?
It's easy to feel helpless, right? That's what can one person do. But honestly, I think the first step is simple. Educate ourselves.
Right. Got to know the problem before we can solve it.
The more we understand the nuances, the better equipped we are to actually advocate for change. And that's step 2.
So reading reports like the one from Girls Not Brides, that's a good start.
Totally. Following organizations doing work on the ground in Nepal. Stay informed about what's happening, what's working.
Knowledge is power, as they say.
Right. And once you have that power, use your voice. Talk to your friends, your family, get on social media.
Let people know this is an issue.
Exactly. Contact your elected officials. Tell them this matters to you. Make some noise.
So it's about amplifying those voices that are often silenced.
You got it. And then, of course, they're supporting the organizations doing the work.
Okay, so tangible steps here. What does that look like?
Donations are always helpful, obviously. Even a small amount can make a difference.
Right. Every little bit helps.
But think beyond money, too. Volunteer your time, your skills. Maybe you're a killer writer who can help with fundraising materials. Maybe you're a social media whiz who can spread the word.
Find your strength, use it for good, love it.
And don't underestimate being a mindful consumer.
Now, hold on. What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of the products we buy every day, clothes, electronics, they're made in places where child labor is still a reality.
Ooh, yeah, good point.
So do your research. Choose brands that are ethical, that treat their workers fairly. It's a way to vote with your wallet, you know?
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. It might seem small, but all these individual actions, they add up. It's about shifting the culture, making child marriage unacceptable.
It's about realizing we're all part of this, whether we're in Nepal or, well, wherever our listeners are.
Right. We have a responsibility to do what we can. And remember, this isn't a quick fix. Ending child marriage, it's going to take time. It's going to take persistence.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. But we got to keep pushing forward and celebrate those wins, no matter how small. Every girl who stays in school, every community that rejects child marriage, every law that protects girls' rights.
Those are all steps in the right direction.
Absolutely. It's about believing that change is possible, working towards it with,
Hope.
And maybe a little bit of, I don't know, it sounds cheesy, but
Love? Actually, it is kind of fitting, isn't it? Given that today is.
Valentine's Day, the day of love.
Right. And thinking about it, this whole issue, it really boils down to a question of love, doesn't it?
It does. What does it really mean to love and care for a child? Is it forcing them into a marriage that could ruin their future?
Or is it about giving them the freedom, the support to build their own life?
That's the question we got to keep asking ourselves, our communities, our leaders.
Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. For our children, for all children, to have a chance to thrive, it really makes you think, doesn't it, about what kind of world we're creating for the next generation.
It does. And that kind of brings us back to where we started our whole goal for this deep dive. To really get a deeper understanding of child marriage in Nepal, go beyond the surface level.
And I think we did that, right? We've seen how complex it is, how it's not just about poverty, but also these deeply ingrained traditions and expectations.
For sure. It's a tangled web. But the hopeful thing is we've also seen that change is happening. And a lot of it's thanks to the incredible work being done by, well, activists and organizations, obviously. But
mainly the girls and women themselves, right?
Exactly. They're the ones speaking out, demanding a better future. And that's what's so inspiring to me. They're not waiting around for someone to fix things for them.
They're taking charge, coming up with their own solutions.
Creating a movement from the ground up.
And that's a powerful reminder for all of us, I think, that change often starts small in those local communities, with people coming together to say, we can do better.
It's about empowering those communities to find solutions that work for them, not imposing something from the outside.
Right, because what works in one place might not work in another. Context is everything. But it does make you wonder. We've talked about the challenges of enforcing laws, especially in rural areas.
Yeah, how do you change mindsets, not just behaviors?
Exactly. So thinking about that, What do you think about community-based initiatives, as a way to really address those deep-seated social norms that drive child marriage?
I love that idea. Shift the focus from punishment to prevention. Empower communities to come up with their own solutions, things that will actually work for them, not just be imposed on them.
And not just focus on stopping child marriage, but addressing those root causes. Like, what if we invested heavily in girls' education, gave them real economic opportunities,
Right. Because then it's not just about preventing a marriage, it's about
giving them a real chance at a different life?
exactly. And I'd even take it a step further. What if we challenge those gender norms that, let's be honest, are at the heart of this? Instead of valuing girls for their, marriage ability,
We value them for their potential.
their intelligence, their creativity, their strength, all the things that make them amazing individuals.
I love that. It's about seeing them as people, not just potential brides. Those are powerful what-ifs, but they don't have to stay what-ifs.
Right. They can be a call to action, a roadmap to a better future.
And that's where I want to leave our listeners today, with a challenge. Think about what you've heard, what resonates with you. And then ask yourself, how will you be a part of the solution?
Even small actions can make a difference, whether it's educating yourself, speaking out, supporting those organizations doing the work.
Or just being more mindful in your everyday life, the choices you make. It all adds up.
It does, because ultimately we all want the same thing, right?
For every child, no matter where they're born, to have the chance to live a full, happy, and healthy life. That's what we're fighting for. I think